Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Madelaine Momot, and I am the Digital Content Manager for OlmstedOnline. Thank you for joining me this afternoon for session 2 of the OlmstedOnline workshops. On behalf of the National Association for Olmsted Parks and OlmstedOnline, we are very excited to share this series to help promote Olmsted landscapes around the country as we approach Olmsted 200, the bicentennial of Frederick Law Olmsted's birth. I'm excited to share our advanced search presentation today. Some of you may have attended the first workshop last week, which was titled Finding Our Olmsted Legacy, in which we learned about the geographic capabilities of the Explore the Map tool, and we provided a general overview of the website. A great compliment to each other. This presentation is going to introduce you to the next layer of OlmstedOnline by looking at the advanced search feature. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper, see what research material is available on OlmstedOnline, as well as learn about how to best access external sources of archival information. And I want to share a couple key tips with you before we start that will help your research progress more smoothly. So firstly, I just want to really quickly explain the role of a job number on OlmstedOnline. So beginning in the 1880s, the Olmsted Firm assigned a number to each of its projects, and this was known as the job number. The job number is the most reliable search tool, and it's typically associated with most of the critical documents. So this includes correspondence, reports, photographs, plans, and maps. And with over 6,000 jobs on OlmstedOnline, it's going to be your best way to stay organized and differentiate between projects. And then secondly, it will benefit you to familiarize yourself with the most commonly used archival sources. So OlmstedOnline provides links to scholarly research materials from several external sources. So it's worth spending some time acquainting yourself with these names and websites because they will be referenced often. Some of them that you're going to hear about today are the Frederick Law Olmsted National Historic Site, which is also known as Fairstead, the Olmsted Archives, the Olmsted Research Guide Online, which is abbreviated to ORGO, and then the Library of Congress. If this is your first time hearing any of these terms, don't worry, because you will be introduced to them in this presentation. And welcome to the OlmstedOnline homepage. This is a landing page with resources and tools to discover projects of the Olmsted Firm. Again, our first session focused on using the Explore the Map tool to begin your search for Olmsted Firm projects. But in this session, we will use the Advanced Search tool. And there are 2 entry points. The first one is in that top banner where the red dot appears. And then the second one is in that left sidebar. And once you've entered Advanced Search, you are going to see 5 different tabs. And these are labeled Search, Projects, Plans, Images, and Documents. And these are here to provide you with different search options, and depending on what you're looking for, can be a great resource if you're wanting to quickly and directly go to a specific item. Using the advanced search is going to give you the results in a list view, but as you research, you can still, of course, use the OlmstedOnline Explore the Map tool as a supplement if you want to conduct a geographic search. But the first tab we have here highlighted is kind of a catch-all where you can quickly search by project or plan. However, there are over 130,000 plans on OlmstedOnline, so you might not want to search just by plan name or number. However, we do have it there as an option. And then the second tab, which I primarily use and is probably the most helpful as it lets you focus by location. You can also filter by project type. So if you were to click on the drop down, you will see 14 different categories appear. These include parks and parkways, city and regional planning, college and school campuses, subdivisions, private estates and homesteads, grounds of building types, and arboreta and gardens. And you can also click on that small blue eye for more information that will be found on the OlmstedOnline glossary and links page. And then you probably won't find yourself using these last few tabs too often, but they are useful if you have a specific search in mind. So for example, if you wanted to see a list of all the plans associated with a job number, although you can find that list on the project details page, which we'll see in just a moment, you would enter the 5-digit job number into the search bar, click go, and then you're able to see a list of all of the plans. And similarly for images, let's say you wanted to see all images that are sourced from the Smithsonian Archive. You would enter Smithsonian into the keyword search and view a list of all of the relevant images. This list that you see on your screen shows you what we have uploaded right now, but we do anticipate adding several additional images from the Smithsonian over the next year. And then for documents, you could use the keyword search to bring up finding aids, Library of Congress General Correspondence, or as we're going to use in this example, National Register documents. So I'm searching using the term NRISID, which is a keyword embedded in the description of every National Register document on OlmstedOnline, and then I'm able to scroll through the results. And for our first example, we will be searching for a job by project name. If you're already familiar with what job you want to be researching, this is the easiest way to get to the project details page. So as you can see in the moving image on your screen, we've entered the job name into the name filter under the search tab. But when you click enter or go, it will switch to the projects tab and list any options that match your criteria. Oftentimes it's easiest just to start from the projects tab since it includes all of the filters that you'd want to use. But since there's only one landscape with the name Morningside Park on OlmstedOnline, you're only going to see one result show up. And then when Morningside Park does come up, you would just proceed to click on the title to get to the project details page. And then once you've located a job through advanced search, as we just did, and then select a job, you will be taken to the project details page. It holds the core data for a job and provides access to plans, images, documents, and external links. So from this page, you can view the location, you can view the synopsis, which offers introductory and background information about a job. And then off to the side, you're going to see links, so to the Olmsted Archives and the Cultural Landscape Foundation. And then on the bottom half of the screen, you can view the lists of plans, documents, and images. So we can see here in the highlighted section that there are a total of 43, as indicated in the number in the parentheses. This does not necessarily mean that all of these plans are digitized. But when we click on plans, we get a drop-down list of all of the extant plans on Olmsted Archives. And if we were to click on the first one titled Department of Public Parks, we would be taken to the plan details page. And then as you can see, we are faced with a memo stating plan archived in the Olmsted Archives at the Frederick Law Olmsted National Historic Site. Digital copy may be available online. Check for external link on left or Olmsted Archives digital collection sidebar box on the project details page. But if we do a quick scan on the left sidebar, we see that there's not an external link. So therefore we know that we have to find the plan in the Olmsted Archives. So to locate this specific plan, you'll just take note of the plan number, which is 1 as indicated by that red arrow. And then you're going to return to the project details page and visit the Olmsted Archives link on the right sidebar. You'll be taken to the Olmsted Archives Flickr link where you can view the available scanned plans. So you would just select an album and then simply scroll through the plans until you find the corresponding number if it has been digitized and shared on the Flickr site by the Olmsted Archives. Here we can confirm that the title and plan number match, so we've indeed located the correct plan. And then here's another kind of visual depiction of how you'll be accessing the Olmsted Archives from the project details page. So starting from the left-hand side of your screen, once you click on the link, you will be redirected to the Olmsted Archives Flickr page. The collection details for the individual job you are researching, in this example, it's Columbia University, are typically listed on the left-hand side of the Flickr page. So you're going to see details such as location, type, and date range of available plans. And the Flickr page is going to show one or more albums holding either plans or photographs. So all you have to do is select an album and then browse through it. For photos, there are often a page view and then a close-up of the photo itself. And since there are 2 albums for Columbia University, the first one shows 99 photos, and then the second one shows 13 plans. And an important note is that sometimes key plans for a job are held in a separate lithograph collection at the Olmsted Archives, and thus they are not included on the Flickr website. But the lithographs have been scanned and are listed on ORGO, which is the Olmsted Research Guide Online, and we'll be talking more about that later. So you can identify them by name on ORGO and request digital copies from the Olmsted Archives. And now we are back on the ever important project details page for Morningside Park, and we will be viewing the materials listed under documents. So we're just making our way down that page. But as you can see here, there is an extra phrase stating see research instructions and links in the sidebar for additional information. And we've put this indicator here to serve as a reminder that the documents listed on the project details page are not inclusive of all of the available materials. So this is our gentle push saying that you should still be conducting your own research and visiting the archival websites. We've put research instructions and links button on every project details page to try to make it as easy as possible for you to access those additional sources. But moving on, we will click on the first document listed, which is a Library of Congress job file. And something that is important to note again is that all relevant Olmsted Associate Records B files have been uploaded to OlmstedOnline. So as you see in the highlighted section, you will see the abbreviation OAR-B quite frequently as you search different project details pages. And here again, we see a memo reading, file archived at Library of Congress, Manuscript Division. Use the external link in the sidebar to access the digital file. But in this case, there is an external link available. And this will take us to the Library of Congress website, where we can view the actual file of correspondence. In this example, there would be 7 images to look through. And then looking back at the documents list quickly on the left-hand side of your screen, we see the next type is a general correspondence file from the Library of Congress. In this case, it's from the Frederick Law Olmsted Papers collection. And this is just another example of a type of document that you may come across as you are researching on OlmstedOnline. But proceeding down the list, the next one we will look at is a document from the Landmarks Preservation Commission from New York. Again, we see a memo telling us to look in the external link in the sidebar. So we would just click on that link where the red arrow indicates, and you will be taken to the document. This is the designation report for Morningside Park from the Landmarks Preservation Commission and could offer some important information. And then the last bar on the page is titled Images. But as we can see, indicated in the parentheses, there's a number 0. So there are 0 uploaded for Morningside Park at this time. This will be the case for many jobs, but by checking the Olmsted Archives Flickr link in the sidebar that's also highlighted in yellow, you may find Olmsted photo albums with historic photos related to the job. Also, the NAOP and OlmstedOnline are making a concentrated effort to source additional photos. So this is an element of the website that we hope to build out. Leading up to Olmsted 200, we are requesting photos from our NAOP network. So we would welcome any photos of Olmsted landscapes that you would like to share. We do have a link on the Olmsted 200 website if you're interested. And so now we will be talking about what happens when jobs search or when jobs share the same name. So in this moving image, we're searching Delaware Park, which is in Buffalo, New York, and 3 jobs appear in the results. And looking at the job numbers, which are chronological, we can assume that these projects occurred during a similar time frame. And if we look at the job books, which are located at the Library of Congress and linked in our Glossary and Links tab, we get a clue as to why multiple jobs appear under the same name. So as you can see from this image, we've located the 700s page. And first we will zoom into job 702, which reads Buffalo Park equals Delaware Park, first called the North Park. So we can maybe make the assumption that this was the first or primary job since it appears first. And then we're going to look at job number 705. This one reads Delaware Square, parentheses, Albright Art Gallery. That raises another question, something we could be researching. And then lastly, number 719, this one says Delaware Park, see also Buffalo Park. So now we have another park to go back for reference. But as you're researching, in this example, Delaware Park, each of these job numbers will be useful to you, hopefully supplying a range of plans, documents, and images so that you can piece together a picture of the Olmsted Firm's involvement in this landscape. And let's look at another way to search from the Find Projects page. So as shown in workshop session 1, you can search on our visual Explore the Map tool. However, to view jobs in a list, this is another option. So here we are searching by project type and location. So we've selected parks, parkways, and recreation areas from the dropdown, and we're entering the city name Boston to view jobs in that metropolitan area. But with a big city like Boston, you do want to be a little bit careful when you search with the location filter, since boundaries may have changed over the last century. The firm may have used the main city as a catch-all, so for such as Brookline and Boston. So if you don't see your result on the first try, don't be disheartened. Projects can be across state lines depending on the client's locations, so making small tweaks to your search as you go can lead to a different result. But once you click go, the search results will list any jobs matching your criteria. And so in this case, we are going to select job number 00930, which is the Riverway. And now we are back on the project details page. So to reiterate what we've already been over, if you wanted to view a list of the extent plans for a job, you would view the list of titles under the plan tab where we see that red arrow. And for the Riverway, there are 131 plans. And to view plans that have been digitized and mounted to the Olmsted Archives Flickr link, you would click into the Olmsted Archives via the link on the sidebar. And one or more albums will appear holding either historic photos or plans. So you select the album that you want to view in order to look through the digital images. And then under documents, we will take a closer look at the second title. Here we've uploaded a section of the 1956 Massachusetts Act and Resolves report that details Olmsted Parkways. So this is an example of something that could be useful for you to read through if, let's say, you were doing broader research on Olmsted Firm parkways in Massachusetts. And then next, under images, we see 3 titles listed, and we will select the second option, which is Muddy River with Path, in order to view the historic image. And when you select an image from the project details page, you'll be taken to the individual image detail page. So on the left sidebar, you can find the image title and the description. Below that, the source abbreviation, and then also the archival external link. So you could access that for full collection details. And then in more exciting news, we have partnered with the Smithsonian Institute Archive of American Gardens. So we are uploading historic photos from 4 collections. So this additional image depicting the Riverway is from the Thomas Warren Sears collection. And then as another example, this photo from the Rancho Santa Ana Botanic Gardens showing California poppies comes from the Garden Club of America collection. And now we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the most relevant questions on the frequently asked questions page. So you can access the questions from the top banner where the red arrow is pointing. But question number 4 asks, do I need permission to download documents? And you do need permission for commercial use or publishing, such as on the internet, and you would need to contact the copyright owners for their permission. And then question number 5 asks, where are the Olmsted documents held? And they are held at 2 places primarily. They're primarily at the Olmsted Archives and the Library of Congress, but there are some elsewhere in other archives and private collections, but we'll be discussing that more in the upcoming slides. And then question number 7 are what keywords can be used in a search. So keywords are terms or phrases that we have embedded in the description of a document, plan, or image. So for example, all of our descriptions for documents from the Library of Congress include the phrase loc.gov. So therefore you could enter that phrase into the keyword search with other filter criteria, and the results will show you all of the Library of Congress documents. And then additionally, when we are writing descriptions for images, we include cultural landscape terms that match the photo or what the photo is depicting. So that would include birds such as vista, vegetation, or circulation. And then question number 8 is, how do I research an Olmsted job? So here you can find detailed written information about how materials are organized on OlmstedOnline, as well as step-by-step instructions on how to search for a job. And then question 8, so what we have written here, as well as the Olmsted 200 YouTube videos. So we are recording this presentation, and as well as the Explore the Map presentation from last week will be uploaded to the YouTube channel. So these are great resources for you as well if you have questions in the future. And then back to that previous question of where are the original Olmsted documents stored? The Olmsted Archives collection is located at the Frederick Olmsted National Historic Site in Brookline, Massachusetts, and it includes over 1 million documents separated into 4 collections. So there are the records related to Olmsted design, administrative and business materials, ephemera and reference materials, and furniture and objects collections. So you can contact the Olmsted Archives via email to request information and digital copies that are not readily available online for you, such as certain finding aids or digital copies of plant lists or job reports. all of which may be very helpful and critical to your full understanding of a job. Or when they are open to the public, you can actually set up an appointment to view the materials in person. And there are also two collections held at the Library of Congress. The first is the Frederick Law Olmsted Papers, and it's the earliest collection spanning from 1777 to 1952. And these are organized into 8 series, including journals, correspondence, subject file, and speeches and writings. And there are about 24,000 items, most of which have already been digitized. And then the second collection is the Olmsted Associate Records. This one spans from 1884 to 1971. And they're organized into 9 series, but the ones that you'll probably be using the most are Series A, the letter books, and Series B, the job files. And there are about 170,000 items in the Olmsted Associate Records. And then kind of getting more into the nitty-gritty work now, when you're searching at the Library of Congress collections, it is helpful to use the finding aids. So since much of the correspondence collections for the Olmsted Firm is filed in folders by date and not by project, it's important to have identified the exact date of the correspondence you are looking for in these chronological records. This fortunately has been made possible through a project previously undertaken by the Frederick Law Olmsted National Historic Site and the NAOP, and the information for each job can be found through the correspondence lists in ORGO, which we will look at subsequently. But when you enter to the Library of Congress finding aid for the Frederick Law Olmsted Papers, you will see a right-hand sidebar, which lists the series collection. And then on the left side, an extensive contents list, in this case from correspondence 1838 to 1928 series. And it's organized by container, which includes a box, a real number, and then a date. So you would select the date range of correspondence that you want to view. And then when you select the date range, you are able to browse through all of the scanned images. So for the Olmsted Associate Records, it's the same process and a necessary step to find chronologically organized records, such as in Series A, the letter books. So again, you're selecting a date range, and then you can view the scanned images. And then once you've read the FAQs to your heart's desire, you can visit our glossary and links page. And you're going to access it in the same place from that top banner. But item number one says job number. And so here we have the links to the 3 job book volumes that are held at the Library of Congress. And then item number 2 is research instructions and links, where we provide succinct step-by-step instructions on how to access external archival sites and information. And then number 4 is ORGO. So we share a little information about what it is, how it was developed in 2000 by the Frederick Law Olmsted National Historic Site and NAOP, and how it's a digital database reflecting historical records. Item number 5, other digital archives. We provide direct links to additional archives that may hold useful information for your research. Item number 8 is titled Sources of Archival Materials and Other Resources. And we include links to archival sources for materials that we have referenced on OlmstedOnline. And number 9 is the papers of Frederick Law Olmsted volumes. So there are 12 volumes completed in 2020 by Charles Beveridge as series editor. But these are annotated letters with each volume including an excellent introduction, which captures what the Olmsted Firm was working on over a period of time. But we do have 8 that are on the HathiTrust Digital Library, and you can access those links here. And then lastly, the Cultural Landscape Foundation We just talk a little bit more about the mission and what's included on the What's Out There page. And then going back up to number 2 quickly, here where the red arrow indicates, we have links to the Olmsted Research Guide Online, and then more specifically to the 2 search options within that, the Advanced Master List Search and the Advanced Archival Record Search. And we will look at ORGO now. So this is a crucial resource for your research, which I've mentioned a couple times already. But this is the Olmsted Research Guide Online, also known as ORGO. It's a digital database that was created from a collaboration between the NAOP and the Frederick Olmsted National Historic Site. It is a bit tricky to navigate, but once you know where to look, it will become an indispensable tool. There are a couple of ways to search on ORGO, but this is just one example. So starting at the Advanced Archival Records search page, you can enter a job number and click search. The search results will appear as individual file units and can include plans, images, correspondence, or records. And then once you select a result, you're able to view the location of the file. So you would take this information and access the Olmsted Associate Records Series B files via the OlmstedOnline Research Instructions and Links page. You would also want to note the real number and dates to locate the appropriate folder. So that is listed on this information. And then, as I mentioned earlier, correspondence from the Olmsted Associate Records B job files are already linked in OlmstedOnline under the Documents tab. So you would most likely be using ORGO to find other items from chronological files in the Frederick Law Olmsted papers and the Olmsted Associate Records A files. In this next example, we are viewing a document from the Olmsted Associate Records Series A file, which is the chronologically organized letter books of the Olmsted Associate Records. So we want to be identifying the exact date, which is found at the bottom. Here it's November 3rd, 1884. And then it would be important to locate the folder in the Library of Congress finding aid that we saw before. And to wrap up on a little bit of a less dense note, I really want to share this fun and visual feature that we have on OlmstedOnline. So if you go back to that FAQ and more tab and click Tours, Trails, and Videos, you can use that to view a series of educational films or virtual walking tours that other Olmsted-related organizations have prepared on their websites. So I've selected a tour from Waltham, Massachusetts that shows great images and quotes from the Stonehurst landscape and is a good way to get a sense of the layout of a project if you aren't able to personally visit yourself. But if you know of any other tour, trails, or video resources that we could add to the website, please let us know. My email is naop@olmstedonline@gmail.com. And we will be hosting additional sessions with guest speakers focusing on the Olmsted Archives, the Olmsted Research Guide Online, and Olmsted collections located at the Library of Congress. And thank you for listening to this information. I hope that you have a better understanding of the archival information available on OlmstedOnline. Here at the bottom of your screen is the OlmstedOnline web address, and again, my email. So if you have any further questions or want to contribute information for the website, please always feel free to reach out. So feel free to email me if you think of anything after this presentation. This recording will be up on the Olmsted 200 YouTube channel very shortly. So thank you again for joining and have a wonderful rest of your day.